Mistal continues along these lines, giving us some more great gems of wisdom.
Which was Mr. Fund the Police. Now, look, can we just talk as adults? Does anybody in good faith think that the problem with police brutality in this country is that the police aren't funded enough?
So, of course, Biden is being tone deaf to the needs of those in his party, and especially to those in the black community, because we're not going to defund the police. We're going to fund the police, fund the police, fund the police. So Biden made this statement at his State of the Union address. Now, it's Mistel's contention that he's just trying to throw off the heat from the Republicans rather than what's really going on here. The reason the Democratic Party is running away from the defund the police standpoint is because, one, they were absolutely behind it, and two, they have recognized the facts on the ground, which is that defund the police happens to be the stupidest policy, at least idiomatically, policy procedure of the left in recent memory, right? And this is not me saying this. This is the FBI saying this, showing that a 30% increase in murder took place in 2020. They go on to say that 4,901 more murders were committed in 2020 during a time where we're supposed to be locked down, people, more than in 2019. And that was the largest increase in murder year on year since back in 1968, which increased 12.7%. So, of course, the biggest tell is that places that had the strongest defund the police rhetoric, places like Minneapolis, New York, and Chicago, had the highest increases in murder and in violent crime. So the real reason Biden is running away from this defund the police strategy is because it is absolutely patently absurd. And there are a few times where we get rewarded with bad policy so quickly with the repercussions of that policy, like we did with defund the police. Defund the police was the most ridiculous policy procedure because it quickly created what we all knew, surprise, surprise, would be the repercussions of defund the police. Greater violence, more murders, streets that are not as safe as they were before all of this rhetoric and before all of these defundings took place. So no, it's not because Biden is some great, loving, good, caring man. No, we've seen that's not true. That's not why he's running away from defund the police and he's trying to just bring everybody together. He's running away from defund the police because it is the stupidest policy procedure the left has produced in recent memory. And the stats tell us that. So Mistal may have lots of clever arguments or talking points, but unfortunately the facts kind of get in the way of all of those things. And this is the problem with progressivism, guys. This is what I'm saying throughout this whole thing, is that progressivism doesn't wish to acknowledge reality. It merely wants change. All right, and then finally, he says one last thing that I think is important for us to kind of check out.
Should the Constitution be thrown out? What do we do? Is it a living document? Or is it a sacred document?
It's certainly not sacred, all right? Let's start there. The Constitution is kind of trash. Now, let's just talk as adults for a second.
What did you say? It's what?
It's kind of trash.
Trash.
It was written by slavers and colonists and white people who were willing to make deals with slavers and colonists. They didn't ask anybody to look like me what they thought about the Constitution.
So this was the greatest part of the whole thing, is that Eli Mistal believes that simply because there were some, not all by the way, but some founders of our nation, and some of which wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution who had slaves, that therefore everything that they wrote, regardless of how true it is, must be riddled with racism. Of course, nobody actually believes that you can look through the Constitution and find a place where black people are disenfranchised. Because, drumroll, there isn't a place. Now, these people might have legitimately been legit racist. They might have owned slaves and all of that stuff, and they might have done evil things in their past. But it doesn't mean necessarily that the Constitution is evil and should be destroyed, and that now we should, in this great state of utopian wisdom, now recreate a Constitution. I didn't say this at the beginning of the show, or the lead up to these headlines, but this is the whole thing that we don't wish to recognize with our founding fathers. Our founding fathers knew things that we don't know. We've been so blessed by the prosperity that they put into place in the Constitution that we have forgotten the reality of why the Constitution was created in the first place. And here's why it was created in the first place. Because totalitarianism exists. No matter how many poems we try to recite to Putin, or no matter how many times we try to ignore the fact that conquerors still exist in the world today, and they will come knocking on our door, the reality is human nature doesn't change. Now, policies and procedure may change, times may change, technology may change, but human nature doesn't change. We're face to face with that right now, with this whole Russian-Ukrainian thing. So, what they don't want to acknowledge on the left is that they just simply want to destroy. And they're willing to risk common sense in the process. And that's what's really going on with this Constitution debate. First of all, at a time of great increasing polarization, does anybody think that we're actually all going to come to the table and agree upon a new Constitution? Not to mention the historical argument that I just tried to illustrate. The Constitution was written in a special place of privilege, an epistemic reality that we need to take into account, that they understood totalitarianism more than we do in our present age. Therefore, the things that they wrote there cannot be reproduced as easily in our generation as it was back then, because they had insight to things that desperately needed to happen. Today, we've got Wikipedia articles. So nonetheless, the idea that the Constitution is just some racist holdover, Jim Crow 2.0, is just ridiculous. There isn't anybody with a brain that actually believes this to be true. It's just merely another way to try to undermine common sense.
You can catch brand new episodes of Indie Thinker with Reed Huberman every Monday and weekly bonus episodes to keep you thinking throughout the week. But you have to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when new episodes drop. If you enjoy this content, make sure to like this video and share it with friends.